Harris and her supporters, the lead that Donald Trump has been building over the last half hour, 45 minutes, as we've watched the votes coming in. So 61% counted there for Virginia. Biden won this state handily 4 years ago, and really Kamala Harris's path to the White House becomes much easier, much clearer, much less rocky if she can turn things around in Virginia. Let's go actually to those southern states that are swing states. Georgia, big lead for Donald Trump, 81% of the votes counted. As you'll remember, Biden won this state by fewer than 12,000 votes last time around. That doesn't appear to be the trend here tonight. North Carolina, a place that the Democrats have been hoping for a breakthrough. The last two elections, the winning margin for the Republicans got narrower and narrower, but tonight it is a pretty wide lead with 2/3 of the vote counted. The other two swing states, the polls are closed there, and we do have early results for Arizona. Let's take a look at that. A third of the votes counted, a dead heat right now in Arizona, 11 electoral votes. I won't go through all the scenarios right now, but let me tell you, if Virginia does go to Donald Trump, Kamala Harris not only has to win the blue wall, but she probably has to win Arizona and Nevada as well. Adrian, Nevada, polls have closed there, but only a few minutes ago. We don't have numbers yet.
Yikes, all right.
Okay.
It is, wow. Perhaps the polls will be right at the end of the day, that this is very, very close. I mean, we spent 2 election cycles talking about how the polls were off. They might not be off at this point. If you're seeing a bump in the numbers at the results bar, and you are, that is because Mississippi has just come in for Donald Trump. So again, in terms of confirmed states, nothing is a surprise. But as you've been listening to Ian talk at this point, it's the states where it's leaning. That's where some of the surprises are. And Paul, if I may, not to spring something on you.
Spring it.
Spring it, okay. What are you thinking, and Aisha will know the answer to this, but what are the questions you have about the Harris camp right now? Is it a runway conversation, like, has there not been enough runway, or is it just the message doesn't lift?
I don't know. You mentioned earlier was Virginia overlooked for the ground game. Again, to your earlier question, that's the surprise to me. I've wondered, we haven't talked about gender tonight. We've talked a lot about reproductive rights. I met people, Democrats going back to 2016, who were not ready to have, in the 21st century, in the most modern country in the history of the world, who weren't ready for a woman to be president. I met somebody last week in Washington, a Democrat from Texas, who said her husband, black woman, who said her husband was drifting away because he couldn't envision a woman as commander-in-chief. Everybody has their own anecdotes. And I don't, is that a factor here, I wonder? I don't know. Is it? What do you think?
I don't know. We know that it was for Hillary Clinton. I mean, we actually have results on that one. I mean, well, it remains to be seen. I'm looking at this map right now, and one of the things that we're not talking about yet is the other races that are happening in some of these states and how they might play out. I'm watching Wisconsin to see how Senator Tammy Baldwin is doing, because she is in a tough race against a very, very well self-funded rich guy, which kind of plays out with the Republicans, and she's holding her own as a labor warrior, but it's tracking the same with the presidential there. She's just slightly ahead of him still, but it's very, very close. In Arizona, though, what's interesting is that Ruben Gallego, the Democrat there, is actually ahead of Kari Lake by a couple of points right now, who is the Republican. And that is a really great sign for Arizona, to see that Senate race with a third of the vote or so in, looking really good for him. That is a hotly contested race. Kari Lake is someone who is quite radical, but has toned down a bit and is very, very popular as a Republican there. He is also very popular there, and so abortion is on the ballot there as well. To your point about reproductive rights, this is obviously a swing state. I think that that's going to be an interesting one to watch, and I'm watching the Senate race as a bellwether there for what might happen. And
just on Senate, too, it's worth noting, if it's a Trump White House, and if the Senate goes Republican, not to get too far ahead of our skis.
When it goes Republican.
Say that?
When it goes Republican.
You know, let's say Thomas is convinced to retire and Justice Alito and replaced by two younger justices. That's decades of a strongly conservative Supreme Court for the United States.
That is the great power of the Senate. Certainly from a Canadian perspective, when people talk about what does the Senate do, that's one of the first things they mention is the Senate has the power to confirm justices. You're seeing a bump again just for Kamala Harris. That is Colorado that has just come in. Again, not a surprise there. We keep talking about Wisconsin, but we also have to keep talking about Pennsylvania. Whether Pennsylvania becomes critical, we'll see in a few hours. But Richard Madden is there and has been talking with people in the